So for number 1, it tells us to find all of the zeros for the following polynomials. So when we are asked to do that, I can use my calculator to find some zeros, and I can also use the synthetic division from there to make sure that I found all of the zeros, because not every set of functions will have all real solutions. We will have imaginary ones as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this whole function in my calculator. So x to the 4th minus x cubed minus 22x squared plus 16x plus 96. So now everything's in there. I can graph it. Fun little trick, if you press zoom 6, that'll take you to the standard window. So I can see where it crosses the x-axis already. There's 2 ways I can find my zeros. If my zeros are perfect whole numbers, I can press second, go to table, and I can search for them. And I'm looking for where my y is 0. So here I have 3 and 4 being 0. So I'll go ahead and use those ones. But if you had decided to instead not go with the table, you could press second trace, which will bring you to calc. Go down to 0. And what you need to do is it's asking you for your left bound. So I'm going to find my cursor. So I can see a little blinking cursor. That is to the left of the 0. I'll press enter. It says right bound. I'll scroll to the right one. If it went too far, that's okay, because I just know that it went farther right, which is fine. I can also see here. Another way to make sure that you are doing it correctly is one side should be positive, the other side should be negative, because you are crossing over that axis where y goes from positive to negative. So I click there. It asks me to guess. I don't need to guess. And I've got x is -4 and y is 0. So let's go with -4 and 3. So I know that x equals -4 and that x equals 3. The reason I chose 2 x's to go with is because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to be dividing by x plus 4 and x minus 3, because we've got x plus 3 and that should be x minus 3 and x plus 4 are 2 factors of this function. So I'm really going to be dividing by these factors in order to simplify my function down to being a quadratic, which means the degree would be 2. So I'll start with -4, and we're going to be using synthetic division. Remember, synthetic division is going to be -4 in a little square. And I'm going to write down all of the coefficients for all of my x's as it goes down in degree. If, let's say, there was not an x cubed here at all, you do need to make sure you remember to put that placeholder of a 0. So this is 4, 3, 2, 1, none. So we have everything. We don't need placeholders. The coefficients go 1, -1, -22, 16, and 96. Remember, what we're trying to get to is where we have the remainder being 0, and we're trying to get down to a quadratic, which means we'll have 3 terms, which would be the constant, the x, and the x squared. But we'll get there in a moment. So the first thing you do is you bring down that first term. Then you're going to multiply this number here by this term and set it here. So -4 times 1 is -4. Now we will add these terms together. -4 plus -1 is -5. Multiply -5 and -4 together to get 20. Then I'll add negative 22 plus 20 is negative 2. Multiply those together, and I will get negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. 8 plus 16 is 24. And 24 times negative 4 is negative 96. When I add these together, I get 0. And remember, that last placement is your remainder. This is your constant, x, x squared, x cubed. So if we're at x cubed, that's not quite quadratic, I'm going to need to divide again. So the reason I did choose 2 is because if I've solved for 2 x's, that means instead of having x to the 4th, I will have x squared. So now I will use the other 0 that I found, and I'll just go again. I'll bring the 1 down, multiply 3 times 1 is 3, negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, negative 6 plus negative 2 is negative 8, and then we have 8 times 3, which is, negative 8 times 3, which is negative 24, which gives us 0. Now, again, this is my constant, this is my x, and this is x squared. If I were to write this, I now have, this function can be broken down into x minus 3 times x plus 4 times x squared minus 2x minus 8. But we need to make sure that we factor this completely. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can use the quadratic formula to figure out where your zeros are going to be, or you can factor it to where we get something like this, and we can see where the zeros will be as well. So I'm going to try factoring. So using the area model, this needs to be negative 8. This is x squared. I'll have an x and an x. Now I need to think about two numbers that when I multiply them together will give me 8, or negative 8, but when I add them will give me negative 2. So I know that 8 is 4 and 2, and if I have negative 4 and positive 2, negative 4 times positive 2 is negative 8, and negative 4 plus positive 2 will give me negative 2. So this becomes negative 4x, this is positive 2x, and if we add those two together, we do get negative 2x. So those are my other two factors. So I can replace this, and I can rewrite the whole thing. This in factored form is going to become x minus 3, x plus 4, x minus 4, and x plus 2, which means all of our zeros are going to be where each of these equals 0. So if x minus 3 equals 0, then that means x must be 3, so that 3 minus 3 equals 0. So we have negative 4, which accounts for this one, 3, which accounts for this one. We'll also need 4 and negative 2. So here are all of the zeros. We'll do the same thing for number 2.